should put it away because it's going to be a mob.
Yeah. Okay, so today's daf is daf mem gimel in Nizir. We learned for a four shlema for Akiva ben Chaya Rachel. Tana Rabbanan, right down halfway down the page where we left off yesterday. Tana Rabbanan. Lehechalo. What does the pasuk say? Lo yitama ba'al ba'am lehechalo. We're talking about Kohanim over there in Vayikra Chof Aleph, and it says that the master, meaning the Kohen, should not become tamei to a dead person, to defile himself. Lehechalo, to profane or defile himself. So lehechalo, what does that mean? Ad sheyamas. Tosfos explains that lehechalo, where again the pasuk speaking about a regular kohen, lehechalo is a lashon of somebody who's dead, excluding a person who is severed and dying. Lehechalo mashma la'achar shenasa chalal, says Tosfos, after he's become a dead person. So here we see that a kohen is not allowed to defile himself with a dead person, meaning he can't go to a funeral. Can't touch a dead body. That's what the Tanakhama says. Rabbi Omer, the pasuk says b'mosam. Where does it say b'mosam? That's not really by Kohanim. There it's talking about by Nizir. But we mentioned yesterday that there's a hekesh. Tosfos says it's the Gemara in Daf Mem Ches. Rashi also alluded to it. It's a hekesh. We're going to have that in a few days. Hekesh between Nizir and Kohen Gadol. Right? B'Kohen Siv Medami Nizir Kohen Gadol. Nizir is comparable to Kohen Gadol and to a Kohen, so we apply for what applies to one to the other. They can't become Tamei. So the one pasuk is Lehechalo learns out that a Kohen is not allowed to defile himself to a dead body. Rebbe says, the pasuk says, what's the pasuk in Nizir that we've quoted many times? Vayikra b'Nizir, it says Lo yitame lehem b'mosam. Rebbe says Lo yitame lehem b'mosam. He should not become Tamei to his next of kin when they're dead. Certainly to anybody else, but b'mosam means when they're dead. So what's the difference between Tanakhama and Rebbe? The Tanakhama learns out from Kohen that you're allowed to tell me when a person's dead. Rebbe says he learns out from Nizir, b'mosam, leitama lehem b'mosam, when they're dead. Adshemus, when they're dead. What's the difference between Tanakhama and Rebbe? The question is simply they're learning the same drasha. So the question is, did you learn it out from Kohen and apply it to Nizir, or do you learn it from Nizir and apply it to Kohen and Kohen Gadol as well? So that's the question. Do you learn out? It's just a question of where you learn it out from. But the drush is the same, that the only prohibition is once a person's dead. We're going to talk about, that's not that we're going to talk about it, but it's an issue of can a Kohen go into a hospital when there are many dying people in the hospital, right? They go there to get a refuah, but sometimes it doesn't work, right? So if they're dying people, can he go into hospital in general? We know, the hospitals here in Israel have Hasara LaMason, right? Hasara LaKohen. They shouldn't go in when they know there's somebody dead, or they put the dead body right away in a separate unit. But still, that's the question. So the Tanakhama says here, Rabbi Yochanan says that there is no difference. The only issue is when they're actually dead. Rish Lakish Omer goes to a dying person. Goes to a dying person. That's Machal. Here's what he says. The ones that lehechalo, afilu goses, you're profaning yourself even going into a room that has a dying person, even a goses. Rashi says the one who learns out the Kohen and Nizir cannot defile themselves. I think that's what below the Kivans. Since he's a goses, we have a call. So he's eventually going to die. The Kamla Rav. We don't mean that anybody who's in, today we know with modern medicine, even a person who's very, very sick can be brought back to life. So we don't really call him a goses. A goses we know is generally a person who is dying. There's no, he's not dead, but he's dying. There's no coming back. So since the Gemara says Rov goses, most people who are goses do die. So the question is a Kohen even forbidden to go into a room or to touch a person who is a goses? The one who learns the Lehechalo, he shouldn't profane himself even by going into a room with a goses. He's also about to profane himself. So the one stuff goes most. If you learn it out, according to Rish Lakish, if you learn it out from Lehechalo, the one who learns out from Lehechalo is even forbidden to go into a room with a goses. The one who Muslim, Adshemus is not. He's not prohibited until the actual guy is dead. Go Adshemus ain goes to slow. Only once a person's dead is it forbidden, not when he's a goses. Okay, what do you do with the other pasuk? The one who says that you learn out from Heichalo, what does he do with B'mosam, right? And you could say this could be going according to either Mandam possibly, right? Either Rabbi Yochanan or Shlakish. Rabbi Yusuf, Rabbi Rashi, Tanya, Rabbi Yomi. A Kohen or a Nazir is only forbidden to defile himself with a dead body. But let's say, can he defile himself by touching a person who is a Metzora or a person who's a Zov? That also is Matame, that's okay. The prohibition is only defiling himself with a dead body. That's when it's mimosa, only when they're dead, not with if they are just impure for a different reason. If they have a plague, they're plagued or they are a Zov. Well, the man of Mosam, the one who learns from Mosam, he also needs that drasha. That's a fact. The fact is that a Kohen is allowed to become Tameh. In fact, he has to see the nega, right? Only a Kohen can see the nega from the Mitzvah, can determine whether he's a Mitzvah or not. And if he touches a Zav also, there's no prohibition for that. So even the one who learns it out from B'mosam, he also needs it for that drasha. He says, you're right. B'mos. It's only prohibited when the guy is dead. My B'mosam, my dad, extra lotion, extra memshma. I'm not talking, you learn out both things. In other words, he learns out both things. Number one, that you're only tamei, you're only prohibited from being tamei when a person's actually dead already, not a dying person. So a Kohen can go into a hospital as long as there's nobody dead there at that time. That's one drasha. And the other drasha is that most of them only tamei when they are, you're only prohibited to go when to a dead person, but not to a person who is impure for a different reason. Well, the one who says learns out from B'mosam only when they're dead. What does it do with Lehechalo? What does Lehechalo mean? You profane yourself by going in there, and the one who learns it out from Lehechalo, according to Rish Lakish, Hechalo means even to a dying person you can't profane yourself. But what does he do with that with the word? If he learns from B'mosam, means only when he's dead. What does he do? Lehechalo also teach me. As we saw yesterday, if you're touching, if let's say a Kohen was already tummy because he was holding on to a dead body, let's take it simply the way we learned yesterday, he's holding on to a dead body, then he's not prohibited from touching another dead body as he's holding on to it. He's prohibited, we saw by Nozir, if he stopped, right? If he walked away, he went out, he went to a funeral and then he went out to lunch, then he's prohibited again. But if he's holding on to it, he's prohibited. In other words, Heichalo, if he's not profaned yet, he's not defiled yet, then he's prohibited. But if he's already mechul, if he's already holding on to that body, then that prohibition doesn't apply. The one who was lechalo to teach me that you can't even go into a room with a dying man, he also needs it for that svara of yatzah shemechol. If he's already tamei, doesn't apply. It's imkain lemerkol lahechal. My lehechalo, again, that extra verb's teaching me shma minatar to see, learn both brushes. So again, according to Rabbi Yochanan, there's no difference in halacha between lehechalo and b'mosam. If you learn off from lehechalo by Kohen or b'mosam by Nazir, it's simply the only prohibition is to go into a room with a dead body. There's no prohibition to go into a room with a ghost. That's what Rabbi Yochanan learns. Reish Lakish says no. Depends on how you learn. If you learn from Echal, you can't even go into a room with a ghost. And if you learn it from Mosam, it's only prohibited once. Either way, you have to learn. Each one has to learn what the other one's psukim before, but the other psukim could apply l'chora either way. According to Rabbi Yochanan, according to Reish Lakish. Meisvei. Now we ask Kasha on Reish Lakish. Automated matame elasha takes an extra. A person does not defile a dead body. Does not defile until he's actually dead. Even if his arteries are severed and he's about to die, and he's certainly dying, he's still not mitame till then. So how does it? If you learn from Leichalo, it says that a Kohen cannot even go into a room with a dying man. Why is that? The person is not mitame until he's actually dead. Even if you're in a room with a man who's about to die, and later on it would be you'll see that 2 minutes later he was dead. You're not tamei at that point. So how does he learn lehechalo? You can't even go in a room with a dying person. The answer is leinyan tmuye to be matame atanaf ganafshi. He's not matame until he's actually dead. But to profane yourself, you're profaned by going into a room with a dying person. That's how Rish Lakish will learn that the one who learns out from lehechalo, there's a prohibition for you to go into a room with a dying man, but he's not actually metame you until he's dead. That's the point. He's not metame you until he's dead.
It's just
but
a law.
It's just a law. Of course, of course it's a law. What's all these the Yisurim of Nazir and Kohen about the metame is all a law.
Just by going in.
By going into a room, you're over on the law according to the sheet. And now's that the halacha. So the last Tosfos on the page, take a look. He says, "The Kohen is not prohibited from going to the goses," which I think is pretty much Kohanim do go to hospitals if there's no azhara l'kohanim, if there's no sign outside. Even though presumably in a big hospital there are people who are on their way out. You know, the Kaimalon Rav Yochanan like Rav Shlokish, because pardon.
There's probably dead people there.
Probably, but the hospitals, especially in Yerushalayim, I'm sure in Bnei Brak, are very makbid that that they put out that sign so Kohen could go in. Of course, anything can happen while he's in the hospital. The people are. But the point is, the Kohen doesn't have
terminally ill person to go to be about their phone. You can't do that because he might die.
That's right. But a person can be terminal even if he has 2 years left to live. But talking about a person's about to die. That's right. He goes in his home. According to this, a Kohen can go in there. Because we pass like a Belchan against Rish Lakish. Yomi says Bilchus goes Abayit Makom Rav Belchan Rav Makom Rish Lakish. He learns that it's not a Machlok Rav Belchan Rish Lakish and we pass like a Belchan. It's rather Abayit Rav and we go like Rav. Well, if he's there, Allah Karava Lagabi the Bayit. Well, the Rav Pligi Rabbi Rabbanan. According to everything he argued, the Rabbi Rabbanan argue about this because it's Rabbi who said b'mosam, and the Rabbanan would say lehi chalo. Which may, and if you go that it's Rava's interpretation of Machlokas Rebbe and Rabbanan is Machlokas Rebbe Mechaber B'la Mechaberov. Yeah, so according to that, yeah, Kohen Muzral goes according to that. But I think practically speaking, Kohanim are allowed to go into a hospital as long as there's no azhara for Kohanim. And also, I think that there's especially, I know at Shaarei Tzedek it's like that. As soon as somebody dies, they take him into a separate building. There's a building in the back of Shaarei Tzedek. It's like morgue, but the people do. Yeah. It's not a regular morgue, but it's a place where they leave the body. There was a piece of the person who I did Shmir. I did Shmir then for George's mother. There's a room there that they do. So they usually take the body out right away. Of course, it's impossible. We're not Malachei Asharis. A person could go in there. There's no Asar L'Kohanim, and somebody could die while he's in the room, while he's in the hospital. And the hospitals have different buildings. It's not exactly a cut and dry thing. So, but apparently that's the halacha that he's allowed to go in unless there's already a dead body there. All right, Amar of Chistan, I'm in Beis, I'm in Gimel Beis, Amar of Chistan Amar. There's a mitzvah, and the pasuk says, La'ava v'limo, the pasuk says that a kohanim, Emerald kohanim, but Amram le'nefesh le'yitam, kohanim are not allowed to go to a funeral, they're not allowed to come except for their 7 next of kin, right? So as of his wife, it says he l'sheira karav ela, right? Except for his relative who's close to him, that's his wife. And then it says la'ava v'limo lachoso lebino ulebito rachmal aslan. Children die, and la'achiv and love his brother. So we have his wife, his parents, his children, boy or girl, his brother, and his sister who is unwed. So it says over there, it says the first one that's mentioned specifically, even though we learn out from the Shear Karav means his wife, but it talks about his father. Amarav, Chis Amarav. Nikta Rosh Shalav, his father's head was severed. He took his head off, or decapitated, whatever. His head was taken off. Even though he's allowed to be matami to his father, but let's say his father was decapitated. And Rashi says, even if the head is laying there, whatever, he was in an accident or something happened, or a guy came and decapitated him, he's not matami to him because he's only out to matami to his father when his father is whole, not partial. My time, when he's complete and not when he's missing something. Now, this is obviously this would apply also to the other next of kin, but because he's my other word, he's responsible to honor his father, and honoring is both in while they're alive and after death. He's also responsible to honor his father and bury him. Yet we see, because it says of it, this man shushan, this is what Rav Chisda says in the name of Rav, that you're not allowed. Even a Kohen can go to his father's funeral only if his father is complete, not if he's missing any parts.
He had an amputation.
Oh, same thing with an amputation. We're going to talk about that. Amalei Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Nuna said to him, Rav Nuna disagreed. But it's not so cut and dry as we'll see some machlokas. Amalei Rav Nuna Elamiata Kazel Pixadaris. Let's say you're walking in the valley of Aravot. There's some place there. It's a very like out in the wilderness, where there's very few people there. Bandits hang out there. A dangerous place. And Gadavim came, the highwayman came, and they decapitated his father's head. The man's walking with his father. He's on a trip in a dangerous area, in a barren area, and he's walking with his father. And Gadavim came, decapitated his father. He's not supposed to be mitami and bury his father. Amalei. So Rav Chisda said to him, "You're asking me a kasha like that? Mace mitzvah kamrid. You're talking about a mace mitzvah." As we're going to learn later on, right? You can't be mitami to the nevet sex, even a kohen gadol who can't be mitami to anybody, not his wife and not his kin. Can't be mitami to anybody still to a mace mitzvah. He's allowed to. Same thing with the Nizir. Amalei mace mitzvah. You ask me about mace mitzvah. Hashish l'machrini machayev. A kohen is mechuyev to bury and be mitami to mitami and bury any mace mitzvah, even a stranger. So, ba'avav l'koshka, and certainly if his father's a mace mitzvah. Says more behind mace mitzvah. Is this a mace mitzvah? But what's a mace mitzvah? There's nobody to bury him. If he would call out, the man's dying, and he says, "Please come and help me and bury me." Also, you can call out, and other people could come. And he's a mace mitzvah. It's not a mace mitzvah. He's got a son over here. If his father would call him, he would answer the same thing as a Rashi. Is also the son could call other people. And why is this a mace mitzvah? He's alive there. Mace mitzvah is there's nobody around. You come and you find a dead body. There's nobody to bury him. When the guy died, he was solo. He was by himself. There was nobody else there. Here, the son was with him. He can go get other people. He says, "No, keep it because of Baruch, since he's on the road." There's nobody else there. He says, if there's nobody else there, the son is there alone. Excuse me, the son is there, but there's nobody else with him, and the son's a kohen. The father is a mace mitzvah. It is a mace mitzvah because there's nobody to bury him. In other words, the person who is with him. What is a mace mitzvah? Mace mitzvah means that you come upon this person and there's nobody else to bury him. There's nobody else there. So you have to bury him. Well, here the son is with the father and the son has nobody else to get. The son can hire other people and he's a kohen. He's right. If his father's according to Rav Chisda, if the father's decapitated, it means the kohen is not allowed to mitami to his father. Okay, but because the mitzvah is only when the father's complete. However, this is worse than that because there's nobody else there to bury him. So then the son's certainly allowed to bury him. What do you ask me a kash like that? You're telling me, how could it be that if he's decapitated, if he's missing a part of his body, what about this case? If a guy's on the road, there's nobody else there, he shouldn't be mitami his father. He says, of course he shouldn't be there because he's a mace mitzvah. Is this a mace mitzvah? Yes, a mace mitzvah. Mace mitzvah is normally there's nobody else there. But here the only one who's there is the son. So can he get? Yeah, if the son could get other people, yes. But if there's nobody else there, he's on the road. There's nobody else there. He would have given the gospel work. So don't ask me a kasha from there. Okay. So Rav Chisda maintains his ground that if the father, or certainly the other next of kin, that he doesn't have the same chiyuv to honor his children, if they died, or his wife in the same sense, but his father is special mitzvah of keep it up aim. Still, if the father's missing a body part, he doesn't have to. He's not allowed to. In fact, only for the father, only if his father's complete, not otherwise. But this kasha, Rav Hamnuna asked the kasha. Now we're going to ask another kasha. Meisvei. The pasuk says, Asher lo haisala ish. How does that end up, Michael? Lo yitama, right? Lo yitama. Plus it says by his sister. It says lo yitama. To her he should become tamei, right? Lo matame vena matame lebara. Only for her if she's complete. Again, not to her body parts. For her limbs. You're not matisha ena matame. You're not matame la'aver menachai. You're not matame to a limb that came from a live person. Shel aviv. Can if he buried his father, listen to this. If he buried his father and then he realized as he was burying him, or he was about to bury him, he said, there's some parts missing over here. He was shot or he was blown up in an explosion or something, and part of the body was missing. He's not allowed to make a tame just to a aver menachai. By the way, from over here, you see that according to some Mefarshim, not to be disagrees, but some Mefarshim that You're talking about, is the Kohen allowed to bury? Let's say this is a common thing. A person, like you said, an amputee. I remember when Raphael was a rabbi in Binghamton, and there was an amputation, he would take the limb and bury it. You know, myself, they don't have a funeral for that, but you're supposed to bury it. Here it's mashma, that's how you bury it, because why are we talking about being a Talmud to Avram Menachai if you don't have to bury it? So it's mashma here that you're supposed to bury an Avram Menachai. If somebody, let's say, had a leg amputated, you're supposed to bury it. He says, let's say when he was burying his father, he saw that some parts were missing, buries the father, and then he can go look for the other parts. He's supposed to bury him and then look for the other parts. Which indicates, what does that show you? That he could be matame for the father when the father was missing a part, right? Because you're allowed to go, he buries his father, and then he can go look for other parts that were missing, right? Even a small bone the size of a barley bean. My machzor lets him. So what does it mean? He can return and look for them, go search for them. Lav l'meimer. That to say, the imach support. If he's missing a little bit, to me, he's allowed to. So from here you see he can't be matame. Let's say his father was amputated. They took off a leg. He can't be matame to the leg, right? Avram Menachai is matame. He can't be matame to that. But he can be matame to his father. It's mashma. Even if the father was, let's say, missing a finger or some part of him was missing or a limb was missing, matame, and then look for the other parts and repeat this. So what do you see? You could be matame for a father. It's more says low. Don't sort of Chista answer. If Chista says name is low. Ahi Rabbi Yehuda. It's a machlokas taka. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. I go like the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda taka holds that you could be matame for a father even if he's missing a part. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Lo itama. Now here there's a different girsa. Rashi has a different girsa. Let's read it. We have the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda lo itama. Tell me to his sister. And obviously, we're going to see it from the sister, not only the other, not the other kin also. But not to her body parts. In other words, if he's not going to be matame, let's say there's just a limb there. Right? He's not matame Now this is a strange lashon over here. What it means is that you're not matame. He could be matame for aver of his father, aver menames. So his father's dead already. He was allowed to bury his father even though the father was missing, and then he could go ahead and look for the other parts also. That means it shows you that Rabbi Yehuda says that you can't be matame just to a limb. They took off a limb from his father while the father was alive, can't be matame to that. But if his father died and there was a limb missing there, he's allowed to be matame to the father who is missing a limb and then go look for the body parts. Rashi disagrees with this Gersa, and he brings down that the Bach also quotes Rashi here. If you look in Rashi in the first of the wide lines, I know some people call this the Mefarish, but we call it Rashi. The Tanya, again, you're not matame for a body part of his father by itself, but he could go and look for parts of the body after he buried the main part. Klomer, you're not matame for parts of a body, whether the father's alive or dead. You're not matame for a body part of your father, no matter what, if the father's dead or alive. You're matame the main part of the body. Then he's allowed to he's allowed to matame that. If something's missing, and so that's Rav Yehuda's shita, says Rav Chista. Rav Chista. That's Rav Yehuda's shita. Rav Chista Taka says that, and I go like the Rabbanan, the Pligal I go like the Rabbanan who disagree with Rav Yehuda, the Amri. Kivin shenechser mixas. Once the father is missing a body part, or a sister also, a daughter, whatever, he says shubain mutul is not tami. So then he goes on to explain, why this makes sense and why this girsa makes sense. Back in the Gemara. So that's Rav Chista's answer. Rav Chista said in the name of Rav, if your father's missing a body part, certainly the other next of kin, but even your father, to honor him, if he's missing a body part, you're not, the Kohen's allowed to matame him. Obviously, if he's a meis mitzvah, then he's allowed to. A meis mitzvah, you can matame for to anybody. Tanya, another kasha. Tanya, what do you mean? So it's probably Rav Amnuna asking the kasha again. All right, you say it's Rav Yehuda. I'll show you other people also disagree with you. It's not just Rav Yehuda. Tanya Rav Kana, Rav Lazar, Rav Yaakov. Rav Lazar learned in the Bryce, Rav Lazar, Rav Yaakov. Again, lo yitama. The pasuk is by the sister who's unwed. Lo yitama. You're not matami for limbs. Prat. What does this exclude? kazayis manames. Let's say there's a piece of flesh of a size of kazayis manas, kazayis netzel, or you have a kazayis of liquefied, decomposed flesh, like that umoli tabed rekav, or even a spoonful or a ladleful of corpse dust. These are things which are metamayu. If you're even in the room with one of these things, it's metamayu, it's metame ba'oel. So he's not, but a coin's not metame for those pieces of the body. I might think that he also can't be metame for a spine or a skull or a binyana, most of the construction of the skeleton, or a binyana, most of the bones of the body, even if it's not most of the skeleton. The girsa is, I think it's lachi. Kshehu ksiv, when the pasuk says v'amarta aleim, go kormal b'nei kohanim v'amarta aleim, that includes host of chakosov to macheres. The pasuk includes that these things are also you're allowed to be mitame. So here, this brisa clearly says that you're allowed to be mitame for the people that you're allowed to be mitame for, the seven next of kin, even for most of the body. Let's say the spine, the skull, the most of the binyan, most of the rope, that you're allowed to mitame for from the extra words Ramarta Aleim, right? Yochol, right? So I might think Yochol lo yitam l'shem goes to Rabbi Yanam Shalach. Maybe that's only for the sister. Lo yitam maybe that's only for the sister. Yochol b'chosa hu muter. Maybe not them, because there he talks about lo yitama from there. And even though the pasuk remarkably adds on these things, maybe it's only for the sister, not for the other kin. Amrit ma'achos miyuchad. It's just like the sister's miyuchad. She's singular. Shegufo tali bo. Her body is dependent on him. He has to bury her. Notice the lashon of bo. Rashi on Amid Beis, the long Rashi we just quoted, also had the gifts of bo. Here, Rashi in the second line, Shegufa Toli Bo, sounds like it's dependent on her, like it's attached to her. I think that Bo is a misprint. It should be Bo, like we have in the Gemara, and like Rashi himself quoted before. In any case, Michal Shegufa Toli Bo, depends on him to bury her. Umitame, and he can mitame l'shel gogos l'robinyan, just like the sister can mitame for main parts of the body, let's call that. Afkol Shegufa Toli Bo. Anything where not just the sister, but anyone where it depends on him, he's his next of kin, he's responsible to bury them. So what do you see over here? Not only did you have Rav Yehuda who said you can mitame to a next of kin who's missing some parts of his body, but you have another brisa which says you can be mitame. You can't be mitame for a piece of flesh or a little limb, but you could be mitame for main body parts like the spine, the skull, most of the construction, most of the bones. You could be mitame. Says the Gemara. Rav Chisda answers, "Ahinami Rav Yehuda." That's also Rav Yehuda. Rav Chisda says, "I make tense also Rav Yehuda." That's Rav Yehuda shita that you can mitame parts of to a body who's missing some parts. I maintain though that if even the father is mechuyev to honor, if you're missing some body parts, you're not mechuyev to bury him at all. You're not mechuyev, and in fact, not only not mechuyev, you're not allowed to. You're only mitame, it's a mitzvah. You're allowed to mitame to these seven, right? A kohen can't be mitame to anybody other than his seven, unless it's a mace mitzvah. You can't mitame seven, but even these only if the body is complete, not if it's a partial. Okay. That's also Rav Yehuda. Rav the Amar Rav Chisda would quote a Rav that was at the top of the page of Amid Beis. Amar Chisda Amar Rav. It was named Rav. Rav goes like the following time. At the time we have this brisa. Ma'aseh Shemei Rav Yitzchak begins it. Rav Yitzchak's father died in Ginzik. Ginzik was far away. He didn't know about it. They didn't have communications in those days. So he only heard about it 3 years later. That's what it was like in those days, until modern times, before even the telegraph, before these things hundreds of years ago. They found out about it years later. They asked Rav Yeshua ben Elisha, and they had a court, a court of 5 people. And what should he do? What do you mean from Tame? He wanted to move the kever, right? He wanted to move him around. Taptos says, he wanted to bury him in the family plots. He wanted to bury him in the family cemetery. He can't be mitame bisman shusham below zman shechasar, only when he's complete. And like Rashi points out, after 3 years, it's impossible for him to be complete. It's not going to happen, right? These missing parts. So he only found out after 3 years that his father was dead, and he wanted to go transport the body. You see here also that they did that in those days when they could. They would bring the bodies over. In general, that's frowned upon reburying somebody unless it was done with a t'nai originally, and unless there's difficult circumstances. When Mordechai Eliyahu bought the chidah here, whatever it was 70, 80 years ago from Turkey or wherever he was, wherever he died and he was buried, they bought him because they found out that the Turks or wherever it was, I might have been in Greece, I forget where it was, Italy, I think it was Turkey. They were gonna destroy the basic forest there and repave it, for a highway or a building or something. So it would have been destroyed. The body would have been destroyed. It would have been messed up. So there, the rabbi said, go. The chief rabbis, at the time, appointed Mordechai Eliyahu, was a young rabbi at the time, to go and get a group of people and bring the body here. So that's done when it's allowed. In general, it's frowned upon. Pardon?
The Chidah is a Kohen.
The Chidah himself is a Kohen.
That's a lie.
There's a lot, yeah. So most of them are, yeah. But anyway, so you see over here, so that's apparently the halacha. That even a Kohen can only mitami to his father. The Ram Sechem is there also, and they paskin, even though Rav Yehuda disagrees, that you can only mitami to the father, and obviously to the next of kin also, the other kin, when he's complete, not when he's missing any body part. Says the Mishnah. Tomorrow's also a short day, right? We daven at 6. Tomorrow's Purim. Shushan Purim. Tomorrow's we daven at 6. So let's get the Mishnah at least. Shlosh be Nasr Menazir. Again, like throughout Shas, you have this. This should have been the first Mishnah in the Masechet. This should have been the first Mishnah. All the things we talk about, the Kinuyim and all that. Shlosh be Nasr Menazir. There are 3 prohibitions, 3 species, or 3 types of usher. What is an usher? We've discussed this many times. Usher in 3 different things. Hatuma, teglachas, v'yosem, and agefim. All 3 things. He can't be matami lames, as we said before, only lames, not to a zav or to a mitzora, as we'll see. Hatuma b'teglachas, shaving, and obviously when we talk about shaving means during the period. After the period, he's not only can he, it's a must. He's mechuyev to shave off all his head, as we said, with a razor, a blade, and he also bring karbonos. And in any wine products that came out of a grape. Now, we're going to compare these 3 prohibitions: tuma, tiglachas, and yotzim gefen. Chomer b'tuma tiglachas maybe yotzim gefen. What's the chomer that tuma and tiglachas have over yotzim gefen? Very simply, that there are, other than being over on the lav, in each case you're over on a lav, you get malchus for that. But she'atum tiglachas sosran. If you're tamei, you got to start all over again, as we saw, right? If you become tamei lameis, you got to start again. Tiglachas also, if you got to shave, even if somebody forcibly shaved him, he's got to, that knocks off some of it, not necessarily all of it. And if he's tamei, it knocks off the whole thing. He's got to start all over again, even if he had a long nazirus, start all over again. If he lost his hair, he's got to do 30 days, right? You got 30 days. 30 days, he needs 30 days growth. In other words, those 2 things require him to extend, let's say, to extend his nazirus. If he became tamei, he's got to start over again. If he got shaved or haircut, he's got to start. He's got to at least do 30 more days. So those knock off by yotzim and gefen and soser. Let's say he drank wine. He was a bad boy, made a mistake. He drank wine. If he did it b'shogeg or by mistake, whatever, then he's not going to get malchus, right? Just a bad boy. If he was a bad boy, he did it on purpose, he's going to get malchus. But it doesn't knock off the nazirus. It doesn't affect his nazirus period. It doesn't accept the term. It doesn't mess up his term of his nazirus. It doesn't affect that. He just goes on. Okay. So that's a chumrah that tiglachas and tumah have over wine or wine products. Chumrah b'yosma gefen, a chumrah, a stringency that wine products have mibituma tiglachas over toma and tiglachas. Sheyotzim gefen lo hutam machlalo. No exceptions. There's no exceptions. He's never allowed to drink wine at all. Remember we talked about kiddush and the darm. Kiddush you make over bread. What about arbacosis on Pesach? Isn't that a daraisa? No, it's not. It's a drabanan. What do we have to do on the night of Pesach? 2 mitzvahs: Sipur Yisias Mitzrayim and Achilas Matzah. Mora today is a drabanan also. And so, and arbacosis, of course, it's an important thing, but it's not a daraisa. So there's no reason to drink wine. If a nazir is not allowed to drink wine, period. There's no heter, no exceptions. The tumah of tiglachas, hutamachlon. Tumah and tiglachas, to become tamei and to shave, there are exceptions where the tiglachas mitzvah. When it's a mitzvah to shave, Well, for example, what's the tiglachas mitzvah? When is there a mitzvah to shave? Let's say he was a mitzorah in the middle. He became mitzorah. He has to shave, right? And if he became tummy while he was a nazir, there's also a mitzvah that he has to shave, right? But let's say mitzorah, for sure he has to shave. There's nothing to do with nazirs. Let's say mace mitzvah. What's a mace mitzvah? He's got to become tummy, right? If there's a mace mitzvah on the road, he's a nazir. As we said, nazir, Kohen, and Kohen Gadol all have the same halacha, even though they can't be a tummy. And a nazir is like how is a nazir more like a Kohen Gadol than a Kohen? That a nazir can't be mitami to anybody, not to his father, not the kin. A regular Kohen can be mitami to the 7 next of kin, but a Kohen Gadol and a nazir can't be mitami to anybody except for a mace mitzvah. So for wine, there's no exceptions. You can never drink wine when you're a nazir. No reason to drink wine. How about a l'chaim? How about if he's a member of the Kiddush Club? That doesn't help. He still can't drink wine.
Gotcha.
Can't drink wine. But so there's no exceptions. But for shaving, sometimes there's an exception if he's a mitzorah if he was a mitzorah and he had a shave and a mace mitzvah, he can tummy. And now there's a chumrah, we'll start a stringency that tumah has over tiglachas. As we said before, if it becomes tummy lames, again, not tummy, there's a tummy lames, knocks off the whole nazirus, no matter how long it was. Carbon, and you have to bring a carbon because you have to go through 7 days of purification and bring the karbanos. As we said, the 2 birds and the aisle for the asham. V'tiglachas ain't associated. But if he got shaved or a haircut, not only knocks off 30 days, doesn't start all over again. Have a carbon. So therefore, Tumah has a chumrah over tiglachas. Tumah and tiglachas both have a chumrah over grapes that they have over grape products, because there is some exceptions, whereas by grape products there's no exceptions. And grape products have a chumrah or have a kula or a tumah tiglachas have a chumrah over grapes, that the grapes drinking grape products don't knock off don't affect the period of Naziris, whereas tumah tiglachas do affect the period of Naziris. So those are the 3 general categories. Tomorrow we'll see this Gemara about why can't you learn on one from the Kavachom from the other, and the Pesukim, etc. Purim Sameach L'Kulam, especially to those in Chutz La'aretz, Rumi, who you really have your Purim today. We also have Purim a little bit. It's a mitzvah. So call to Purim Sameach.